Cause I ain't just supposed to fly. I ain't asking why no more. Oh no, I take it if it's mine. I don't stay inside the lines. It ain't 2009 no more. Yeah, I know what's behind that door. Yeah, okay, you gotta jump in to swim.
Yeah. Y'all know what it is, man. It's Gridiron Gains. I had to put y'all on that Mac Miller. There's a reason I played that song, though, tonight. There is a reason. We are going to jump right into it. This is the late night edition of Gridiron Gains. Welcome all are welcome. As an athlete, the game often becomes your purpose, your life's purpose, offering structure, identity, a clear sense of direction. But when that game is suddenly taken away, whether due to injury, retirement, or unforeseen circumstances, many athletes are left struggling to cope with the emotional, psychological, and financial challenges of life beyond the sport. The transition can feel like a loss of identity, leaving athletes asking, who am I without the game? This moment, although difficult, presents an opportunity to redefine purpose, discover new passions, and rebuild both mentally and emotionally, as well as I'm going to throw in spiritually. Welcome, everybody, to Gridiron Gains. This is episode 19. Tonight's title is The Next Play, Rebuilding Identity and Life After Sports Retirement. Why are we talking about this? Well, transition, man. That is the mission that I'm on. I'm wanting to educate my brothers and my sisters in the athletic space about the importance of transition and what that looks like and how to be prepared while you're in it, right? Taking advantages of that and also knowing that there's opportunity to be able to take advantage of after you retire. So, the athlete's identity, right? A lot of athletes have seen certain things in life where, man, you grow up in a situation to where things are tough, right? You grow up in a situation to where things are hard. Maybe you were in a single parent household and you lived in an adverse area, right? I'm trying to use the right words here. You lived in an area where there was a lot of violence, there was a lot of drugs, there was a lot of alcoholism, all of these particular things. And the one thing that you were able to rely on is that sport that you played. The one thing that you were able to rely on is being able to be on that field or that basketball court, right? Or that tennis court, whatever that sport was for you, for a couple of reasons. One, it was an escape, right? Two, it was an opportunity. It presented an opportunity for you to be able to elevate yourself and move away from the noise of what that lifestyle looked like, right? Or three, it was an outlet. It was an outlet. It was an outlet to release frustration. It was an outlet to release anger, right? All of these particular things that sport was. So much so to where a lot of athletes, if you hear them when they're interviewed, they'll talk about how the sport actually saved their life. I know in my interviews, I talked about how football was my father. Right? What did football teach me? It taught me about manhood. It taught me about perseverance. It taught me about overcoming. It taught me about understanding that as soon as I think that I've reached a limit, there's a higher limit to go to. There's a higher plane that I can elevate to, right? It taught me about teamwork. It taught me about camaraderie, right? It taught me about emotional control in adverse situations. And it taught me how to be calm in the midst of chaos, right? It taught me how to be cool in the midst of calamity. All of these particular things the game gave me, right? The instruction of a father is the same way that football taught me, right? Of a wise father, right? These are things that if you had a man in your life that was a wise man, he would be able to tell you these particular experiences. Because I didn't have that, I was able to get those experiences through the game. So, in my book, What to Do When It's Done, I talk about how as an athlete, you're more than a conqueror, right? And athletes can feel lost when the structure of a competition has now been relieved. Athletes can feel lost when the structure of their day has now been removed, right? There's a lot of freedom. So you got to think about this, guys, from the time that you were a child to the time into your young adulthood. And if you were blessed to play the game as long as I did, going into your mid-30s, early 30s, right? That's 20-some odd years of a structured routine. That's 20-some odd years of being told what to do. That's 20-some odd years of understanding exactly how your day is supposed to go. And then you wake up and the next day, boom, it's all gone, right? I know so many people that can identify with this, right? Like if you think about the person that worked in a company for 15, 20 years and then they're let go and they're fired. Now they're trying to figure out what to do with their lives or where to even start, because for 20 years I did this routine thing, right? And as an athlete, you might hear some people talk about, well, hey man, if you went to college and you played, obviously they tell you not to put all your eggs in one basket, so on and so forth. I get that, but when you look at the competitive nature of athletics, right, you got to be all in, right? And it's tough, especially when you're in the situation, to be able to see outside of it, right? And everybody can attest to that. Anybody can attest to that. It doesn't just have to be sports. You can look at things that are going on in your life. We are much better giving advice than we are taking it, right? Because it's easy, it's clear, crystal clear vision, right? As I had these glasses on, to be able to see what is bothering or what is causing someone else's situation not to move the way that it needs to move. It's easy to see that. It's much harder to look intrinsically at oneself and say, what is it that I'm doing, right, that's not working for me? That's a hard thing because it requires you to be real with oneself. Guess what? When you're transitioning out of football or you're transitioning out of sport into real life, the real world as we like to call it, right? It's the same thing. Military, they have the same issue, right? That transitional period. There's so many stories about how this has been hard for people. One story that comes to mind is, man, there was a great basketball player here in Dallas. His name was Delonte West. This guy was phenomenal. And now when you follow his story, there's mental health involved, there's drugs involved, there's a loss of a fortune involved. Mark Cuban tried to get him involved and got him into a rehabilitation program. He also brought him in at first and tried to help him out, right? But in that particular situation, it didn't work for him, right? I've seen guys in the NFL, man, that have come in with some sort of mentality, and in the NFL break them, man, and like when they get out of it, they're not the same person, right? And when I say they're not the same person, I mean the joy is gone, the happiness is gone. I've heard stories of individuals that can't even watch the sport anymore, right, because of how they felt the game did them. I've heard of individuals that are stuck in their past and not able to move on, which is the reason why I played that song by Mac Miller, 2009, right? Stuck in the past, not being able to understand that there's so much opportunity, there's so much life left, there's so much world to explore beyond the sport that you play in. And so that's the reason why I'm pushing this message, because I'm studying this stuff. I'm seeing this, man. Like there's a young woman that I'm listening to now. She wrote a book called Grit, Angela Duckworth. Wonderful book. And she talks about what it takes in order for you to get to the next level. And that's what a lot of us talk about. That's what a lot of us focus on. And it's more than, your talent. It's more than your physical prowess, right? Grit is dealing with your resilience. Well, guess what? You can take that same message and you're going to have to put that on top of when the game is done, right? How do you navigate life after the game, right? It's one thing to say that you're more than a conqueror. It's another thing to actually go out and have to prove it, right? My value in my space now has to be proven, right? I did it in one arena, right? In the arena of sports, I have a certain value. And now in the arena of finance and public speaking and authorship, right? Now I have to go out and prove myself again. This is what it takes, right? And you cannot have the mentality that you believe that because you did something in one space, that automatically people that are not in that space should respect you. I see that a lot when it comes to athletes. I play football, so I should be respected in the real estate space. I played basketball, so I should be respected in the tech space. Or, I was an Olympic gold medalist, so I should be respected in the investment space. No, you shouldn't, because nobody knows you in that area, right? That's also part of the transition period. A lot of that pride, a lot of that thought process that we carried on into the game, that doesn't bode well for us when we move into the real world. There's a proving process in everything that we do. Scripture says to prove all things. That's in the book of Thessalonians. It's in the back of the Bible. You got to go back and get that one, right? But there's emotional stages that take place after the transition, after retirement, right? One of them is you feel lost, right? There's grief. Some of them can be denial, anger, depression, right? Sadness, because you've only known this thing. And again, depending on your life situation, that thing gave you the opportunity that you have today. So now for that thing to be gone, it's like a piece of you has been removed. How do we fill that hole? How do we fill that void? That's the reason that I believe that we should start focusing, even when we're in the sport, of understanding that the sport is what we do. It's not who we are, right? Our purpose, right, is found at the intersection of our proficiency and our calling. So whatever we believe that our calling is and whatever we're proficient at, right in the intersection of that is our purpose. And once we find our purpose, what should we do? We should discover our purpose. Once we discover our purpose, then we should dive into our purpose. And once we dive into our purpose, everything that we've learned, now we deploy ourselves, right, into the world, into the market space of understanding exactly who we are, exactly what God made us, right, or who he made us to be. And this is the most important thing, I believe, understanding who we serve. If you start working on that now, then when it's time to elevate to another level in a different plane, a lot of these emotions and these things that we see, the anger, the depression, the denial, the sadness, right? A lot of those things will start to decimate, right? They'll start to dissipate, right? With the amount of exposure that an athlete chooses to live with, coupled with competing in an extremely physical demanding activity, the physical, emotional, and mental highs and lows tend to be experienced in a feast or famine, right? I read that in the article. I wish I would have wrote down the name of the article, so I can give credit, because I don't want to take credit from people that write things. But the psychologist that wrote that, he talked about that, and I'll read it again. He says that with the amount of exposure that an athlete chooses to live with, coupled or paired with competing in an extremely physical demanding activity, the physical, emotional, and mental highs and lows tend to be experienced in a feast or famine type of mentality. Meaning what? That is the way that athletes see life. So for all of my people that might have never played sports at that high level, now you'll get a little bit of insight to, if you're friends with an athlete, why they're either all in or they're all out. There's no in between with them, right? Because that's all they've known their entire life, right? And again, that's good in sport. I don't know if that's so good in life when you're just all in on something. Now, is there something wrong with being all in? No, obviously you've done it with sport. It was good for you. It got you to where you wanted to go. But if you're so locked into a situation to where you can't see outside of it, right? I'm not saying you're not committed to a thing, commit to it. But if you're so committed that you can't see different perspectives about things that you're doing or the thing that you're doing, then that tends to become an issue. Because now what happens is you're in danger of being closed-minded. And closed-minded people can't see opportunity. As a matter of fact, closed-minded people miss opportunity all the time. Give you an example. Gary Vee missed out on Uber, right? And the guys that came up with Uber were his best friends. Why? He just didn't see it. He didn't see it. I just drunk a bottle of water. Somebody came up with this thought process. I'm pretty sure there was investors that these people came to that was like, that just doesn't make sense. They couldn't see the opportunity, right? Being all in certain situations is very good, right? In your beliefs. If you're all in on your beliefs, you stand 10 toes on what you believe in, right, wrong, or indifferent, that's perfectly fine. Why? Because in that type of situation, make the decision. And if the decision is wrong, here's my thought process. Make the decision. Just decide. Desirde, right? De means off or from. Sirde means to cut, meaning to cut off or to cut from anything that doesn't align with your purpose. If you are wrong and you're all in on something, at least you've made a decision. So there's a possibility to where when you get new information, you might be willing. Hopefully you are. I would implore you to be. But you should be willing to judge based off of what it is that you believe in, the information that you've been given. If you find out that you're wrong, then you can go ahead and correct it. And that's a learning experience. That's a part of growth. That's a part of life, right? There's nothing wrong with that, right? The thing about the feast or famine thought process, though, is when you live like that, there's a scripture in the Bible, Wisdom of Solomon 1 verse 12. It says, in the era of your life, put not upon yourselves destruction with the works of your own hands. Meaning what? Don't do yourself harm. Don't do yourself harm. How can you do yourself harm? By being closed off. By being closed off. By not doing your due diligence. By not saying, hey, you know what? I know that in the past I've been this particular way and that was working for me. But if I have physical evidence that when I try to apply this thing that worked in one area to the thing that I'm working on now and it's not working, that should give me cause to pause, right? So that moves us on to the next aspect. Financial challenges and the importance of planning and financial instability, right? There is a significant loss of income. And I can only speak for the sport that I play, right? There's a significant loss of income that happens with athletes. And here's how athletes get in trouble. Most of them are not, I don't want to use the word financial literacy or financial literate. I don't believe that it's the fact that they're not financially literate. I think that they know for some sense what to do, because social media is all out here. It tells you a lot of things and people are watching, especially the young kids, right? What I believe it is financial disbelief and a lack of financial awareness. So let's deal with financial disbelief, meaning this. A lot of athletes that have made it to the professional level from collegiately, and now we got the NIL, so we'll have to roll that back and throw that in. So now if you make it to the collegiate league or the professional league, you're of the thought process that the money that you're receiving is going to last forever. It's a big chunk of change, right? 6 figures, 7 figures, right? You know, you're making, I think Archie Manning was making, not trying to count pockets, they just threw it out there, but like 3.7 M's, right? Shador making, I think, $4 million. People making $1 million, $2 million, $500,000, $600,000. When you come from, seeing a check for a couple hundred or a couple thousand all the way to $600,000, $700,000, $800,000, man, it feels like that money's not going to ever stop, right? And that's the financial disbelief, because somebody on the outside, say myself, even though I've done what these kids are doing and I've been where these kids are wanting to go, right? I'm the old guy on the outside that don't know what he's talking about, right? My money never gonna stop. I'm never gonna get hurt. I'm Superman. I'm killing the game. Everybody's telling me how great I am. I'm fine with my bread, right? Plus I put it up. I saved it, right? That you hear that as well. Here's the thing. You cannot save yourself to success financially. We're talking about the realm of finance. You cannot save yourself to success financially. There's a lot of different factors that people don't think about. One of them being the inflation. We know that that's crazy. Another thing being if you have your money in voluntary markets, right, and you don't have your money in things that are of alternative investments, right? Excuse me. Let me not say money, because money is really gold and silver and precious metals. Let me say currency. If you don't have your currency working, gaining you annual return end over year over year, I don't care how much of that money you save. Eventually, you're going to spend it. Here's what saving does. I save $500,000, right? And I have it in an account. I'm not spending it, right? All of a sudden, I want to dip in it to take a trip. Boom, right? I've now diminished my savings. So I put money back. Cool. We're back at zero. Then I want to take another trip. Boom. Then I come back. Put money back into it. Now I want to buy a car for mama. Boom. Right? And I put money back into it. Now I want to go get dad something. Boom. Right? Or I want to take care of a baby girl or the brothers or whatever. So you're constantly playing this ebb and flow game, but the money is always going back to zero and it's never making anything. And here's the other part. Where do you have that money sitting? Right? If you have that money sitting in accounts that are not, that don't have buffers, then you're losing money twice. You're losing money when the stock market dips, and you're also losing money if you take money, if you're taking from it, right? So there's entities that you must have your money in that continue to gain what's called compounded interest, so that money is working just as hard as you are. Because here's what happens. You're only able to replenish that because you're in that sport. You've created a lifestyle that's up here. Now what happens, and this happens all the time. As a matter of fact, 78% of the time in the NFL and 60 to 65% in the NBA, we see that this happens. When that money that you're making stops, boom, right? And the savings now are higher than the income, guess what starts to follow? The savings, right? So now maybe you don't see it for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. But by year 10 or 12, this is where the statistics kick in. 2 to 12 years, financial distress after retirement. It's because nothing was put in place to be able to stabilize the lifestyle that you built when you were way up here, right? That's why it's important for you to build a lifestyle that's comparable to what your investment return is, not to the money that you're making in your principal. Think of it as chess. In the chess game, you want to make sure that you keep the king protected while being able to move the pieces around the board to capture the other person's king. That's the way money is. Your principal is the king. You must protect your principal at all costs. There are strategic moves that you must make in order to keep that king protected. And what are you fighting against? You're fighting against inflation, right? You're fighting against financial struggle, right? You're fighting against the market, right? You're fighting against you're fighting against the government. There's a lot of different things that you're fighting against when it comes to the financial understanding, financial awareness. Let's talk about the awareness. Terrell Owens, right? Terrell Owens ended up going bankrupt because he was not financially aware of what was happening to his money. He trusted in his guys. I'm going to tell you right now, guys, anybody that profits off of your ignorance will never tell you the truth. People can make numbers seem like, people can make your wealth seem as though like nothing's wrong. I deal with people that manage portfolios all the time, wealth managers, right, or portfolio managers. And they talk about the leaks, right? $25 million AUM, asset under management, 30, 40, $50 million AUM, right? Asset under management is what AUM stands for. And they talk about the leaks that these people don't see. And the good ones go in there and they find them and they show it to them and then they create structured plans, right? But the financial advisor that you have is two things. One, make sure that they're living the life that they're telling you to live. That's the first thing. And they're not making money just off of the money that you're giving them or you're paying them off of the fees. That's the one thing. So make sure that their lifestyle is equivalent. Make sure that they're competent. Make sure that when they tell you about investments, they have their money in those investments. So they're putting their money at risk and not just yours, right? That's important. But also make sure that they're sitting down with you and giving you insight and understanding on the game plan when it comes to your finances. I've talked to so many people, right? I have a guy that's playing right now in the NFL. When I asked him about his financial advisor, the brother, we had a conversation. The brother told me he's learned more from me in 30 minutes than he's learned from his financial advisor in 3 years. I said, well, okay, well, let me ask you, have you reached out to him and talked to him? He's like, well, I try to talk to him, but you know, a lot of times it's, he's busy or, you know, or the stuff that he's telling me is like some of the stuff I already know and the other stuff he's just talking over my head with, so I get intimidated. I'm like, that's not a good advisor, right? Again, anybody that profits off of your ignorance will never tell you the truth. They try to make it seem like finances is so hard. It's not hard, right? One of my friends run a family office. It's a multi-billion-dollar family office. You know what he said about money? He said, Tony, money's very simple. Have more money coming in than you have coming out, and then find the ways to have money coming in and diminish the ways that money comes out. It's like that is the game. That is the game, right? right? So now when you start talking about the intricacies of the game, the investments, right? The real estate, the alternative investments, there's opportunity zones, there's technology, there's all of these particular things. But if you have buffers, right? And you know me, I'm insurance and annuities all day long. That's the reason why I like that is because those are assets. I can leverage those assets with banks, collateralize loans, and have returns coming from my contract to be able to take care of the COM or cost of money. And now I have tax-free income to go and make investments. And here's the thing. When you move your money like that, what ends up happening is now you can sit back. You don't have to make these rushed decisions trying to make millions or hundreds of thousands of dollars to make up for the lifestyle that you were living when you're in retirement because you see that the well is starting to run dry. That's how guys go broke. The Ponzi schemes, the get-rich-quick schemes. I'll give you an example. I'm working on a presentation right now. John Elway could have been an owner of the Denver Broncos, right? They wanted $15 million instead of paying him in his contract when he won the Super Bowl with the Broncos. The Bowen family, Pat Bowen. The story is all over the internet. You can type it in. He denied it. He turned them down, right? Years later, he gets involved in a Ponzi scheme. Guess how much money he loses? $15 million. Guess what happened if he would have invested when Pat and the Broncos sold the team? He would have had almost $850 to $900 million on that $15 million investment. Opportunity cost, not being able to see it. Cost of 800% ROI. See, money is not the biggest loss. Not seeing the opportunity and not acquiring the knowledge, right? What does the good book say? I go to the book. For me, the reason I go to the book is not just because of my faith in what I believe in, but it gives me insight and wisdom. It says that wisdom is the principal thing, but with all I get and get understanding, my man Laquan Butler said, ignorance is expensive. Very. That's a bar. Very expensive, right? But wisdom is the principal thing, but with all I get and get understanding. Now, you can't just get wisdom. You have to understand how to leverage it and how to use it. Period and point blank. And that's where the misconception happens a lot of times in the black community, right? You might have some people that might have some understanding, or they might have some wisdom or some knowledge in the space, but they don't have understanding. And the reason I know this is because when I start to get into the intricacies of things, the details, right? The in-depth things, right? They can't give me the answer to it. It's because you're more worried about being impressive than being impactful. My purpose is more important than being praised. So if I got 2 people watching this or 200 people watching this, it don't mean anything to me. I'm going to be doing what I'm supposed to be doing because God told me to do it, period and point blank, right? And what I've learned is that you can be impressive and you'll never be impactful. But if you are impactful, one day you might be impressive. So for me, I'm going to do the work, right? Because all work works. It either works on you or it works for you. And if it's not working for you, then you allow the work to work on you until you become the person in which the work can work for you. That's how that works, right? So, a lot of athletes, they don't explore the true purpose of financial planning during their careers. So what is the true purpose of financial planning? Being impressive doesn't fulfill your purpose. Absolutely, Jay, for sure. So what is the purpose of financial planning? Here's my thought. Here's my belief. This is what I run with. You can take it if you want it. If not, you can throw it away. Makes me none. The Bible says, and I'm talking to my brothers, the Bible says that a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. When you go back into the scriptures, it tells you that an inheritance is house and riches. The reason that I want to plan financially is so that I can leave house and riches, houses and riches, real estate and all different types of other assets to my children's children. That is the reason why I plan financially. Now, here's the thing. In the space of sport, if you are blessed to make it, this is the quickest jump start. The quickest jump start to acquiring wealth, right? What happens is is that wisdom flees deceit, meaning what? That if you're using money, okay, now y'all got to make me get into it a little bit. Okay, when you go to the book of Genesis, the book of Genesis says, and there was gold in that land, and there was gold in that land, and the gold there was good. Money, right? Currency, right? Finance is a spiritual entity. It is a spiritual entity. If you are leveraging money to move in evil spaces, that money will be as fleeting as a bird released from a snare. We see this time and time again. What do I mean? If you're using your money to try to control people, if you're using your money to buy depreciating assets, if you're using your money to pop bottles at the club, all of these particular things on a continuous basis, right? I'm not saying you're going out to have a good time, right? I'm saying, listen, we're not stupid. We know the things that we spend money on. Those things don't bring back a return. It will bring back a return, but it might not be the return that you want, right? So if you're spending your money on these particular things, this way of living, then what happens is that now wisdom flees deceit. If somebody gave you some understanding, if somebody gave you some wisdom, if somebody gave you some forethought about what you should be doing, you're going to be so ingratiated in foolishness that you won't even be able to hear the opportunity that stands in front of you. And so then this is what you'll say as an athlete. I've heard it and seen it many and many a times. Man, that sounds good, bro. You know what? Holla at my guy. So this is what your guy will do. Your guy understands money. Your guy works your money. Your guy understands opportunity. So what ends up happening is you end up turning your guy on to solidify his financial world while your financial world is depleting. I've said it once, I'll say it again. Anybody that profits off of your ignorance will never tell you the truth. Hell, your guy might even tell you, you know what, Mr. Athlete, I just don't think this is a good deal. Once I looked at it, it just really didn't set well with me. Meanwhile, he's taking money out of his pocket to go do the deal. Why? Because financial advisors only make money off of your money. So they have to find other things to be able to solidify their lifestyle. Who gets the most opportunity? See, now we're going to start getting into it. Who gets the most opportunity when it comes to these type of investments? Athletes. Why do the business people come to the athletes? Because we have the quickest access to cash, liquid cash. The liquidity game is crazy. What do I mean? I've seen people make checks with millions, M's. Hell, I was taking home $600,000-$700,000 every 2 weeks. In the bank account. Boom. Digital. Swipe a card. Whatever I want. So this is what I'm telling you. So why, if I'm a business person, would I not come to the athlete that doesn't really understand business and say, hey, man, I got you. Just you can trust me, man. I've helped. And here's the thing. Then we go and put clout on these guys. Oh, man, you know, so-and-so, yeah, I work with him too. Yeah, man, we should do some things together. And then the guys, the athletes that are working with the financial guys that don't really understand what's happening with their portfolio, they're not very wise with the things that's going on with their money. They come back and say, oh, yeah, man, you got to holler at my guy, bro. He going to get you right, man. He got me a check for. This is the conversation. He got me a check for. He got me a check for. While you're thinking about getting checks, he's creating a bank. Y'all are not the same. But you got the girls, you got the jewelry, and you got the cars for now. So then what happens is you screw all that up, and now you start hoping that you can get total and permanent disability or, line of duty that the NFL offers, right? Like these particular things that they offer retired athletes. Now you're trying to get these $15,000, $20,000 checks that you're getting paid for. Here's the thing about that. You're selling your soul. I'm just going to keep it 1,000. For my guys in the NFL that get total and permanent, right, they have to find other ways to be able to create other income sources. So a lot of them will put their businesses in their wives' names, right? Or they'll put them in their children's name or family members' name. Why? Because they're total and permanent disabled. They cannot take in income anymore, right? Guess what else you can't do? You also can't. You better not be filmed with having fun with your kid and running around. They better not see you doing any type of extracurricular activity. It makes it look like you're okay. Because if so, you're going to lose that. You have check-ins. So now you're being watched. So there's a price that comes with that. It ain't free money, man. You have to understand that everything has a cost. The cost that I pay as an entrepreneur is late nights, understanding the market, building my value in the market, building trust with the market, doing all of these particular things to show that I know what it is that I'm talking about and I can be trusted, right? There's a lot. Late nights, early mornings, right? Sometimes I get to eat, sometimes I don't. It just depends on how the schedule is while trying to balance family life. That's a sacrifice. Here's the win. I'm operating in my purpose. Here's the win. There's a possibility, not a possibility, because God is making it happen. The athletes that I am working with, as we continue to build, they'll be a smarter brand of athlete. So then they'll go in and they'll put that wisdom that I've been able to, that's been bestowed upon me, that I'm able to bestow upon them, they'll be able to bestow it upon their brothers that are in the locker room, which would then cause a mental shift to have brothers thinking differently. You know what? Maybe I don't need to go spend that money on mama house right now. Okay, mama good. Let me make sure mama good, right? But let me figure out how to take this resource that I've gained and place it in something that's going to bring me back return, and then use the return to go get mama set up. Why is that important? So that when I retire, her lifestyle doesn't have to change either. See, that's the thing people are not talking about. We see the stories with the camera and everybody crying because, oh my God, mama, you did all this for me and I got you this house. And it's a sad thing when your career goes, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. And then you got to come back around and say, mama, we got to sell the house. See, they don't talk about these stories. These are things that are happening. Repossessions, right? Or me possession. Me possession is when you don't let them come get it. You take it back yourself, right? But these are things that are taking place and it's happening. Those are not glory stories. So ESPN ain't showing you that. But I seen this stuff with my own eyes. You want to know why Glenn Davis is in jail right now? Is because he was running a federal scheme with the health and insurance industry. Adrian Peterson is another one. No, that is a true thing, brother. He asked if Adrian Peterson being broke true or media. No, Adrian Peterson, that situation is real. And it's unfortunate. Had the honor and the pleasure to play against that brother. Phenomenal athlete. But this is the things that take place. And here's the thing. It's not just Adrian Peterson, right? You've had tennis players. You've had swimming athletes. Like the list of names. Go look at the show 30 for 30 broke. Ed Butowski was the person that got that rolling. But you'll see all different types of people that had that situation. Entertainment industry. Paul McCartney had to pay, I think, like half a billion dollars to his wife in a lawsuit. So it's not just mismanaging money. Just call it like I see it. You mismanaging relationships. Here's the thing athletes don't understand. There is a particular structure that the wealthy use. If you're not structured, brother, I don't care who your lawyer is. I don't care about the trust you have. If you're not structured on a particular level, all of that is susceptible to being taken in divorce court. That's the reality. And what happens is this. Here's the cycle, right? And it's going to move me into the next segment, which is the impact of injury or sudden career ending. But here's the cycle. You're riding high on your horse as an athlete. You're doing what you want to do. You're making money. You're playing good. All of these particular things, right? Now you're on the back nine of your career. What tends to happen during that time while you're playing is just my experience of what I've seen. A lot of times the relationship is not as strong as you thought it was because you get into a relationship very young. You don't know yourself and you don't know your partner and vice versa, right? You think you're a man because you're making money, so you start having children, but you don't have any wisdom or any guidance to be able to give the children, right? And so now you're with this particular individual. Maybe you met her in college. And then all of a sudden let's say you have a 7-year career. So let's walk through the scenario. You got drafted at 21. You had a 7-year career. You're 28. You retire after year 7, right? You turn 29. 3 years later, you're in your 30s. Here's what starts to happen. You didn't make the right decisions. You didn't do the right things with your money. You didn't do the right things in your relationship. You kind of pushed her to the side and all of those particular things. So now she's bitter. And all of a sudden, she sees that the ship is sinking. So she decides, well, hell, he wasn't looking after me when he was on. So why am I going to try to look after him while he not on? I'm gone. And I'm taking the kids. So now there goes half your wealth. There goes your family. Guys, I'm not making this up. And I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying the quiet part out loud. This is what people don't want to talk about. This is what happens to athletes time and time and time again. This goes beyond finance. This is a lifestyle cycle. This is a poor lifestyle cycle. And nobody's talking about it. That financial advisor ain't talking to you about it. Your homeboys in the locker room probably doing the same thing that you're doing, so they not talking to you about it. Your homeboys back in the hood eating off of you, so they not going to talk to you about it. So you don't see the storm that's getting ready to hit your life down the line because we don't have foresight. We look at life from a very myopic approach, meaning close up, when we need to be looking at it from a macro approach, meaning from a distance. We're not diligent about our business. See a man that's diligent about his business, he shall sit amongst kings. He will not sit amongst mean men. The men that you sit amongst move in an evil space, and therefore the wages of sin is death. And a lot of times that death don't have to be dealing with you not being on this planet no more. The death can be to your finances. The death can be to your relationships, not only with your wife, but with your children. The death can be to your reputation. And the Bible says that a good name is rather to be chosen than great riches. Well, you don't have a good name anymore, brother. Why? Because you was in a domestic violence case. So now you're branded. And then you come back on the PR scale and say, I made a mistake. And all right, that's cool. Well, if the world decides to forgive you, great. If they don't, it is what it is. But it doesn't change your situation. These are the real conversations that I have with my guys that I work with because I've lived that life. That's the difference between me as a wealth planner and everybody else, is that not only can I give you the proper things that you need to ensure that you have generational wealth down the line, but I can also speak to you as an athlete and tell you, bro, if you make this decision, here's exactly how that's going to play out because I've walked that hill. So now what happens when you don't? That's the person that had the long career and these things take place. What happens when your career ends suddenly? You devoted your entire life to this thing. Your entire life. One cut, one hit, one catch across the middle. Michael Irvin, quick slant, right? One sack, right? Joe Theismann, which is why the blind side came into play, right? Ryan Shazier, paralyzed. You're one play away from never being able to do what you do again. And because we have the feast or famine approach, we don't think about these things. Ain't gonna be me until it is. And then the people that it is, right? And what I mean by that it is, meaning the people that it has happened to, they come back after trying to warn you about what's out here. But because you live in a feast or famine world, because you know more than everybody that's living real life, you don't listen. Who will pity the snake charmer? Meaning what? You've been given wisdom about how you should be moving. You've been given wisdom. And it ain't even about people telling you what to do. It's saying, hey, go do your own research. You won't even do that. But you've been given wisdom and you're not listening. And then therefore, when the time comes, you're like the man that built his house upon sand. when the winds came and the tempest came and the storm came, it was not able to stand. It was susceptible to destruction. And what I'm wanting for my guys and my young women that are out here making money in the sport game as well, for my athletes, I want you to start building your house on a solid foundation. Right? Transition happens. The game will end. Ecclesiastes 3:1 says that for everything there's a time and season. In that time and in that season that you're in, that's your years. It's like the book of Joseph. In the book of Genesis, when you look at the story of Joseph. Why was Joseph able to save Egypt and everybody on the outskirts of it? Because he prepared for the 7 years of famine during the 7 years of plenty. That's your key. That's your nugget. That's your gem. That's the key right there. You prepare for the years of famine during the years of plenty. You don't prepare for the years of famine in the years of famine. Proverbs 6 talk about go to the anthislugger having no master, gathers meat for the winter and gathers meat for the winter during the time of the summer. It tells you this. This is called pre-planning. This is what you should be thinking about on your off days, right? Speaking of sports, right? This is what you should be thinking about on your off days, right? And it's not easy. It's not easy to do this, guys. I get it. But here's the issue. Many people choose the path that is easy. Many people choose the path that is less than. Which means what? Which means that their talent, their opportunity, the life that they want suffers in the obscurity, suffers in the shadows of obscurity. That's what it means. Many choose the path of least resistance, which means that their opportunity, their life, the life that they want, suffers in the shadows of obscurity. Do the hard thing. That's the point. Do the hard thing. The last part of this I'll talk about is for the people that are on the outs, right? The new purpose. Rebuilding, family dynamics, family adjustment. Because it's not just the athlete that suffers, it's the family members that suffer too. Here's the thing that I will say to a significant other that's dating an athlete. Understand what that looks like. Understand what it means to support an athlete. Be the eyes for that particular person. Get yourself educated on the psychological aspect of what that looks like for that person so that you understand how to handle it. Don't just think, oh, my man got it. Listen, that is the biggest misconception. How can he have anything? He's 22, 23 years old. Don't make the mistake of thinking because there's a big check coming in that he understands what manhood is about. Don't make the mistake because there's a big check coming in that she understands what womanhood is about. Be the support. Be the help. Be the gap filler. You know what? Baby making this bread, I'm finna go learn about investments while I'm taking the kids to school. Baby making this bread, I'm finna go learn about trust structures. Right? Oh, you know what? I see baby having a rough day. Let me figure out what his triggers are. Or what her triggers are. What does it mean when he says or she says this? Because there's a lot of pressure that athletes are under to perform. And they're being drilled to go to the next play, go to the next play, go to the next play, right? So here's what happens. You come back and say, hey, babe, how you doing? Guess what the automatic response is going to be? I'm fine. If you want a better relationship, if you're a spouse to an athlete, if you want a better relationship, ask better questions. Here's a question. Babe, I know the pressure that you're under is immense. You know, what are some things that you struggle with when you're in the locker room and and there's nobody there to talk to, and it's just you and your thoughts. What are some of those things that you struggle with, like those dark moments? And I know you have them. We all do. But dang, babe, I ain't never really thought about that. Well, maybe you should. See, now you're talking to the spirit of that person. And then let them know when you're ready to talk about that, I'm here. Right? Hey, babe, I read this article about athletes and during retirement. There's some things I want to talk to you about so that we can find ourselves in a better space whenever long time from now, right? You cater to the ego a little bit, long time from now, but that time will come. And when that time comes, I want us all to be prepared as a family. I want our unit to be tight-knit. See, this is the job of a spouse, not just to be sitting there collecting handbags and riding in Rolls Royces and taking your kids to private schools. You have a job to do as well, if you care. That's if you care. But again, I know that the spouses of athletes are not being educated. This is why the divorce rate is so high. Just calling a spade a spade. Sun Tzu once said that opportunities multiply when they are seized. Opportunities multiply as they are seized. The only way that you're going to multiply the opportunities is if you take advantage of the ones that are there. For the spouses of an athlete, the advantage that you can take is extreme education. Can't speak for other sports, but in the NFL, they let the spouses go to school. They let them learn whatever it is that they want to learn. There are women in the NFL. They're like groups or whatever for them to be able to talk about the particular things. Like there's opportunities for you as a woman, not just to be the stay-at-home mom, but to be able to find a way to create businesses on the side as you stay at home in multiple markets, educating yourself in business, right? Because make no mistake about it, it is a biblical thing for you to have a business. So I don't care what people tell you. My thing is this. I'm not listening to people. I'm going to listen to the Bible. I'm going to go to one scripture that's going to set somebody free tonight. I'm going to go to one scripture. One scripture in 1 Thessalonians. Because I'm going to tell you now, the Bible speaks to you having your business. Here's what it says. This is the book of 1 Thessalonians 4, verse 11. This is for my spouses as well as for my athletes. It says, and that you study to be quiet. What does that mean? What does study to be quiet mean? It means that you dedicate yourself. You're not just out here learning something and throwing it out, learning something and throwing it out. And when I say learning, I'm not even talking about learning, reading something and throwing it out. You haven't even learned it yet, right? Dive in deep. Understand what it is that you're reading, right? Wisdom is the principal thing, but with all I get and get what? Get understanding. And that you study to be quiet and what? And to do your own business. Your own what? Your own business. And to work with your own hands. What does that mean? You have a business that you're providing for yourself that you're building for yourself to be able to bring value to the market to help with others, right? So that you work with your own hands as we commanded you that you may what? That you may walk honestly toward them that are without, meaning what? Pay your bills on time, and that ye may have lack of nothing. You want to know why 78% of athletes are falling short on their face when it comes to finances? Because most of them don't have a business. They don't know business. They don't know how to operate business. They couldn't tell you what business was. They couldn't tell you what ROI is. They can't tell you what a P&L statement is. They can't tell you anything about business. They don't know the difference between a W-2 and a W-4, a 1099. They know nothing about that. But I know, our Trip 66 Scat, X post Y pill Z banana. They can tell you all of that. But the scripture says if you want to lack nothing, study the thing that you're doing, your proficiency in your calling, aka your purpose. Study that. Master that. Work the business to provide value for others, pay your bills on time, and you won't lack anything. That, my friend, is wisdom. So, with that being said, I encourage you guys to embrace transition. I encourage you guys to understand the importance of wisdom, perseverance, grit, reliance, not reliance, but resiliency, right? I encourage you guys to do that. Rob Feiner wrote an article called "Coping with Identity Loss." He is a licensed counselor. He's a licensed counselor. He's not a psychologist. He's a licensed counselor. But he wrote a great article called "Coping with Identity Loss: An Athlete's Life After Sport." I implore you guys to read that article. I also would tell you guys that if you are somebody that is struggling with transition, that I understand that life because I've lived that life and am living that life. And there's some things that I've picked up on the way. So if what I've spoken to you tonight has value, then if you go to the bio, click the link, you'll be able to get 2 pieces of literature that I believe that will help you with this. One of them is called The Alignment of Belief and Becoming, right? And within that, as you read through that, you'll see the opportunity to get my my new book that I just wrote called What to Do When It's Done, Navigating Life After the Game. Both of these books deal with the alignment of belief, right? In order for you to become the person, it's the be, do, have principle. In order for you to have the life that you want, you have to do the thing that you need to do to become the person that is able to have that type of lifestyle. And what to do when it's done, navigating life after the game. These are instructional things that guide you through what transition looks like and what it is that you can be doing to have a successful transition from sport life into the real world. If it means something to you, get it. If not, leave it where it is, right? I wrote it to be able to help those that want to help. So with that being said, run well, young lions. It's your boy, Tony the Tycoon. I'm out. Have a great night.